Oh my God. Fucking hell. You know, I can't... So it's Zaha who scores, and it's just absolutely shit. It's defensively rubbish. It bounces more than a bloody table tennis ball. It's just absolutely crap. I mean, it's rubbish. We get screwed so much defensively. If you go on Pornhub, there's actually a category now, after amateur, Manchester United. We get screwed so much on conceding crappy goals from behind.
And with that from the legendary Mark Goldbridge, I have to say thank you once again to Manchester United for making a terrible night feel slightly better, as is often the case at the moment, touch wood. Welcome to the Anglo-Italian pod. As always, my name is Rory, and I'm joined by my very good friend...
Adam! Hey Rory, it's been an epic week of football already. I think this will touch I suppose the theme of it, but I just wanted to introduce this little story. Our favourite man in Saudi Arabia has been sacked. Yes, he is the cheerleader, Czeslaw Michniewicz.
No!
He didn't last, unfortunately. And I just want to kind of draw out this quote about why he didn't succeed in Saudi Arabia. There was
Is it overly negative tactics? No,
well, I won't spoil it for you, Rory, but there was a lack of creativity, and the media and club officials had the impression that the coach had no influence on the team's play and was unable to reach the players, hence the decision to dismiss him. So unfortunately, in his tenure, they conceded 14 goals and only scored 5 goals in his 8 games in charge. So Michniewicz was called a cheerleader for his classless selfie with Steven Gerrard, which was why he got mocked by his supporters. So a bit of cheer, Rory, to this beginning of this pod.
I feel bad for him. I don't know why I feel bad for him. He's just played the football he played with Poland. What did they see in Qatar that they thought this guy's going to be playing Brazil 1970
I have
football?
no idea. It's almost like they didn't see any of the World Cup, right, Rory?
That is incredible.
But, mate, how are you doing, more importantly?
Well, it does free him up for the Poland job, right? It does free him up.
No, it's already taken. Already taken.
It is already taken.
We've already got our Polish Pep Guardiola, which I won't spoil because that's for another episode. But more importantly, mate, how are you doing?
I am good, mate. I am very good. I'm much better than Monday. I'm kind of
good.
I've had the day off Tuesday ill because I was like dying, but now I'm feeling much better. And yeah, ready to talk about lots of Champions League action. It's been a bit hectic. And yeah, disappointing for Arsenal, but I'm sure we'll get there. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, keeping very well. As you, very hectic at work, but we're coming to the end of the week, Rory, and we're almost there. We're almost ready to taste some more football. And let's go through the Champions League before we spoil our listeners with the Premier League and Serie A.
Let's do it. We are, of course, going to take you through all the headlines in the Champions League. We'll be talking about scenes at Old Trafford in Group A. We'll be talking about scenes in the north of France in Group B as Arsenal are stunned. We'll be going down to southern Italy in Group C for Real Madrid and Napoli, and then a surprising banger between Braga and Union Berlin. In Group D, we'll be discussing Inter squeezing, not making it too comfortable for themselves past Benfica. Real Sociedad, surprising a few people. Group E, Lazio again leave it to the final second to get the win. Atletico Madrid come behind from Feyenoord. Then Group F, we'll of course be talking about Oil Clasico between Newcastle and PSG, and a snooze fest between Milan and Dortmund. Group G, Man City win, of course they do. And Group H, Shakhtar Donetsk and Antwerp provide all the entertainment in that group. But we are going to go for a very quick break, and we will see you on the other side for the champions. Welcome back. Here we are. It's time for the Champions League review, and we're starting where it makes sense in Group A, and we're going to start where it makes sense in Old Trafford. At Old Trafford. Yep. As Man United take on Galatasaray, and old boy Wilfried Zaha haunts them with a nice finish and a very, very passionate celebration. I think he really enjoyed that one. But let's talk about the game, Adam. What were your impressions of performances here? Anything new?
We have to give a bit of praise to Man United because I didn't think they were all that terrible to begin with. Let's put it that way. Højlund looks like the player that we know from Atalanta, and boy, does he look like he's on fire at the moment. And this despite not being necessarily creating a lot himself or having a lot created for him in that sense. But I thought he looks so much of a bigger threat than he has been in the first few games since he started for Man United. So praise there. Rashford, he looks almost back to his normal self, but it feels like still in front of goal. He's got that indecisive decision making going on in his head. So there's that opportunity where he's like through on goal and decides to slide it through for Bruno Fernandes. But obviously, Rory, we're going to be talking about defensively how poor they were, and in particular Onana, who looks like, is there an intercurse with these players? I mean, they don't seem to do well when they get sold off, do they?
I think if we start at the back, and I want to talk about Højlund because I have been really, really, really impressed with him since he's come in. But I think Onana, you have to remember that he kept 8 clean sheets in 12 games in the Champions League last year. But he had a front three of Skriniar, De Vrij, and Bastoni in front of him, or Acerbi, right, for most of those games, right? All of those defenders are a step up on what Manchester United have. It's also a much more, it's a much different defensive system. As opposed to obviously the 4 at the back that United like to play. And also, in terms of his distribution, because I think his distribution hasn't been as good as people expected. Like, obviously, his passing is outstanding, but it's not been as effective as United fans would have hoped. And I think that's mainly because Inter have had big boys up front who can get the ball, bring it down, and targets that he could hit. So he had Dzeko, we had Lukaku, even like Çalhanoğlu's a big lad. Like, he's got Dumfries, like big guys that can jump, win in the air, and get the ball down. I feel like United don't really have that. So even the positive that you get with Onana from his distribution, United aren't really able to take advantage of. And then his shot stopping always was kind of a weakness of his. Like, I don't think, like, he would pull off big saves. Of course, like in the Champions League final itself, he pulled off some great saves. But I think he was never, people never said his shot stopping was his strongest point, if you know what I mean, or his claiming crosses was his strongest point. So I think once you're then behind a defence that is so low on confidence, so missing key members, right? You have to keep hammering home. The injury crisis they've got is insane. And so I don't know if he's even played behind the same front 4 for 2 games in a row.
No.
Or if he's played with Luke Shaw for many games, or if you know what I mean, it feels like it's all been so mismatched in front of him that he's being left exposed more than he ever was at Inter. So I think it's making him look worse than he is. That being said, he's made massive errors as well. Like, we all need to, like, we can remember the goal where it just went straight through his hands against Bayern, right? Just go straight under him.
Of course,
There was the third goal against someone where it just went through his hands. United are conceding third goals a lot at the minute. It's hard to remember which one.
Which one was worse as well. That's the point.
Exactly. So it's like, he has made errors, but also he is not being helped on any level. So if we look at defensively, like, Adam, we'll go to you. The third goal in particular. Now, I know by that point, United are down to 10 men, so they're kind of scrambling and there's space. But is there any excuse for Mauro Icardi to be in that much space?
No.
And no one anywhere near him. And all it was one header from the midfielder, and it was just open field.
No, there is no excuse. And obviously, when you look at it from the previews and the reviews, obviously, they show Amrabat as playing Icardi on. Obviously, Icardi does a very clever kind of quick run back just to get into that position and just legs it basically with the ball. But
Garnacho should watch that. And
he should, he should learn a lot from that, right? He might have got that goal against Arsenal then. But that said, I mean, essentially, defensively, like, you should not be that far away from your target man. You should be making sure that you know who's behind you, or at least get a feel for it, basically, and don't let him have that kind of opportunity. So, I mean, there's been lots of calls around that the likes of Lindelof haven't been solid. But it, like you say, it probably doesn't help that they've having to rotate that defensive lineup so often that there's just no understanding amongst the back four, back three, or whatever you call it. I mean, at times it looked like a back two. I mean, that's how bad it was. I mean, you can't cover it off or cover it up even. It was terrible. But again, also you think midfield, where's the midfield in that very instance? I know it's a header, it's won quite easily, but yeah, you think where have they disappeared? And I know they were at that point down to 10 men, right? Just because Casemiro gets sent off. But still, you would have thought Ten Hag wouldn't be necessarily trying to go to attacking mode, gung ho, trying to get a goal, right?
It doesn't take much to see the difference between. Now I know Liverpool and United in terms of squad depth and squad strength is arguably are very far away from each other, but it doesn't take much to see how a manager can adapt and how a team can adapt to playing to 10 men. And how it's. I don't think it's it doesn't have to be clever tactics. It doesn't have to be rocket science. It's right 2 4s and a 1, a 5, a 5, a 3 and a 1, whatever it is. You just shore it up. You just go, right, let's drop back, let's be sensible. I know it's Galatasaray at home. I know at that point it's 2-2 and you're looking for the game, right? You think, no, we should be winning this. But you still have to be sensible and be like, right, just for a few minutes after a red card, let's figure this out. And then we can go and try and push on and do whatever we want to do, right? It just felt like, and it's so often the case with United, and again, they score and then concede immediately afterwards. There just seems to be panic. There's no baseline tactic. There's no baseline this is we just revert back to this, right? If everything goes wrong, we revert back to square one. This is our basic fundamentals, right? There doesn't seem to be that. And they just get caught out on the same thing over and over and over again, because you couldn't say, I don't think, that with 11 men on the pitch, United prevent that goal, because teams have scored that goal against them with 11 for 10 games in a row now, whatever it is. They keep conceding the same goal. So I don't understand what structure and what the fundamentals are, because there just does not seem to be any.
To your point, though, there is an element of coaching, right? There's got to be an element of whatever they do on a Monday to Friday training-wise. They would have gone potentially through some scenarios. They would have gone, Galatasaray like to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
That's the problem. It didn't feel like any of that was there. It didn't feel like it was evident. It feels like they're just playing their own game, and when that doesn't go to plan, they don't know what to do, and that's why they get caught out. So for that Zaha goal, I'm sorry, but that was such a simple dink into the box. Surely someone kind of goes, right, if you've got Casemiro or Amrabat being that person to make sure that they sweep up, then they should be dropping back. If the ball goes over them, they should be trying to drop back. But I never saw that. I never got the impression, and I'm sorry, but Rory, I'm going to pose this question. Do you think Ten Hag is going to last till Christmas at this rate? Because, I mean, I can't see them personally getting out of this group now. I think...
No, they won't get out of the group. They won't get out of the group.
This is the problem, right?
I did have a thought, and I was laughing to myself. I was like, one of the best things that Arteta has done to football is that he's given clubs more patience with managers when potentially they don't deserve more patience. Right. Because everyone's gone, oh, well, Arteta got a load of time and look where they are now.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is true. And patience patience is rewarded, right? Does be rewarded. I'm supposed to be an English teacher. Patience is rewarded, right? But so I think they will. I think they will be patient. But I'm not sure if he deserves it. I'm honestly not sure if he deserves it. I think by this point, with his signings, with the money he spent, and yes, I know Arteta spent more, but Arteta's been there longer. With the money Ten Hag spent, and the signings that he's brought in, and the lack of identity that we've seen at this point, and the fact that they've lost 5 games at Old Trafford this season already, right? It is no one else. It lasts until the morning after that game. I just think that at the moment, with the owners and them not really knowing what's happening, I don't think they're going to make any bold moves. Not until they get the investment that they want which it looks like they're going to get from that Richard Arnold, is it? Is that his name?
Yeah, well, Arnold's the executive, isn't he? It's
who's the guy in the
we know what we're talking about. It's the guy that owns Nice, basically.
Exactly, and he looks like he wants to come in as a minority shareholder, which is what they want, right? They just want that investment. So I think until that happens, they're not going to make any major moves, which I think weirdly works well for United, because I think just the last thing they need is to sack a manager and less stability. But whenever your clubs go through these rough periods, there is always a bright light. There's always something that keeps you going. And I think Højlund is that for Manchester United, because he had a goal disallowed as well, where he was offside early on.
Yeah.
But I was so impressed with the composure that he showed at that moment, where in front of the defender and the goalkeeper, he stopped, waited for the defender to go, dropped his shoulder, put it to the other side of the goal. And it summed up to me the type of player he is, and at how young he is.
Yeah,
I think they and we've said it as well. Like, if they expect him to get 25 goals this season, that's not going to happen. He's 20 years old. But in 5 years' time, you're going to look at 70 million and go, that was one of the best signings we ever made, because I honestly think he is that good. And I think he just brings so much energy, strength. Like, he fucking loves it. He's a United fan. You can tell he cares about football. Watch him play for the Danish national team and how much he gives a shit. Like, he absolutely runs his bollocks off for that shirt. So I think, of course, the fans are in love with him. And I think he is the bright spark in that team at the moment. He is the thing for United fans. Like, when Arsenal were crap, we had Bukayo Saka, and we just looked at Saka and we were like, as long as we've got that lad, we're fine. As long as we've got him, there's still some hope. And I think Højlund is that for United at the moment. I think he's been incredible. Fernandes has gone off the boil a bit. I feel like he kind of disappears when times get tough. Rashford's head has dropped. That midfield looks a disaster. Like, Mount, we still don't know. Casemiro constantly sent off. And Hannibal, young prospect,
young player,
runs a lot, loves a tackle. Not sure how technically good he is, but I think if you want someone who's going to put the miles in,
I think he's still better than most in that midfield at this moment in time. Yeah.
I still don't know if he's going to be long term, but for the moment, I can see why United fans like him. And Amrabat's obviously been played in the wrong position because of injuries, but I think there's a lot of players there where you're looking and going, they don't really fancy it at the minute. Without trying to sound like Tim Sherwood. I felt like quite basic analysis, to be honest, but you can see heads dropping, and I feel like Højlund is one of the few players who was like, just kept going. So yeah, very disappointing out for United, but I did want to give some props to not Fenerbahce. Damn, my house is going to be set on fire. Galatasaray.
Graham Souness with a flag coming to you through your window.
I can hear him coming in the background now. I really love, and Arsenal were linked with him, and I've kind of been looking at him ever since. Sacha Boey. What a player he is, the right back. Every time I've seen him, he looks so dynamic, up and down that wing, absolutely rapid. Look like great crossing. I think defensively needs to improve a little bit, but I think there's a really exciting young player there, and I was really impressed with him in this performance. And I just really enjoyed seeing Zaha score in the Champions League. It feels like, for a player that good, and Zaha has been incredible, his career has been amazing. It's good to see him finally in the Champions League, in a club that are going to, like, Palace fans obviously adored him, but in like a huge club where they're going to worship him, and he's playing European football. I just think it's a really nice moment, no?
Yeah, definitely. And the other player I liked was Karim Akatakoglu, I think is how you pronounce it. Tried my best there. But yeah, no, he looks really good. He looks so composed on the ball, and obviously he scores that goal as well for Galatasaray to make it, I think, at that point 2-2, doesn't he? So yeah, I think they've got a really tasty squad, haven't they, to be fair? And you think De Vries, or Dries Mertens even, sorry, I don't know why De Vries came out. But yeah, Dries Mertens, classic, number 9 that can just come in and do a job as well. So
yeah.
They are blessed with quality across that pitch, and yeah, it was nice to see Galatasaray of old. Almost, it stoked those memories of Hakan Şükür and stuff like that. Basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Doing the business,
and I think nights. they have got the minimum number required for a Turkish Super League team of like old big names. They've got there's like a minimum you need to have. So they've got like Icardi, Lucas Torreira, Davinson Sanchez, obviously Muslera,
Yeah,
of course, then
Muslera.
Dries Mertens, Tanguy and Ndombele. Like, they've got enough players there.
They're going
I
for
think
the
it's a
old
law
retro look.
in the Super League that you need that many players. But yeah, absolutely love that. Of course, Icardi as well. Loving life in Turkey. I did enjoy seeing him score at Old Trafford, I'll be honest. I just got a feeling it was going to happen. But we're going to put you out of your misery there, United fans. But don't worry, this weekend, I'm just to cheer you up, check who you've got this weekend. Oh, Brentford at home. That's a nice, easy one.
You say that, but yeah.
You say that. Brentford's been terrible this year, though, haven't
the
they?
question is, Rory, do we call out the records that Erik Ten Hag has broken this season?
Let's do it.
Because
you're not quite out of the woods yet, United fans.
Not
Here
quite,
we go.
But I think it's quite funny to bring this up. So there was a tweet by Mike LUHG2. So he broke down all the records that Erik Ten Hag has broken this season with this Man United squad. I think the two obvious ones that came out of this game was Galatasaray hadn't won a game on English soil in 117 years of existing until Erik Ten Hag. The next one, Man United have never lost the opening 2 group games of the Champions League until Erik Ten Hag. It goes on, and I implore you to check this tweet out, or X, whatever the fuck that is. But there's a number of alarming stats that might kind of get the Glazers thinking, do we start considering pulling that trigger, Rory? I think they should.
It's never dull at Old Trafford, is it? It's never dull. Never, ever dull. And long may it continue. Sorry, United fans. So we're going to leave Group A there. I think Bayern came from behind to beat Copenhagen.
Unlucky.
Copenhagen very rarely score in the Champions League. And for them to go 1-0 up was a huge surprise. But of course, that just kind of woke up Bayern. Musiala gets the equaliser. And wonder kid of the moment, Matthijs Tel, comes off the bench again to score the winner. He came on against Man United and got the fourth goal.
But that was clever work by Muller as well for that one, because he does a little dummy against Grabara and then sees Tel on the side. So he slides the ball through and Tel just slides it past Grabara. So, fantastic finish. Beautiful. And question marks over Kane, because he didn't really have much of a game here as well.
I feel like he had very few touches and they were waiting for him to kind of get into the game, and it never really happened. Like we said, like the partnership between him and Musiala has had a really good start, but I think he is still figuring out his new teammates, right? And figuring out... I think maybe I'm making
pressure on Tuchel as well. He's rotating that kind of attacking lineup. So, in fairness, he was the guy that got the flick on for Muller. So that's his contribution on the night.
Done. There we go. That counts. Nice. So that does leave in Group A Bayern top with 6 points. Of course, Galatasaray second with 4 points. Yep. Copenhagen third with 1, and Man United bottom with 0. God damn, that does look terrible.
Alarming, doesn't it?
Nice. Group B. Now it's time for me to face the music and dance as Lens defeat Arsenal 2-1. And I'm going to get my excuses in there early. Lens' home record in Ligue 1 last year was 118, drawn 2, and lost 2. So they're very, 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 very strong at home. There's my excuse. Now I need to face the fact that Arsenal were terrible and the Bukayo Saka went off injured. So it was about as bad a night as Arsenal could have had. Now, hindsight is 2020, as people say, and a lot of Arsenal fans are like, what are you starting Saka for in a Champions League group game? Of course he's going to get injured. Now, I can see what they mean, because against, who did we play the weekend? Against Bournemouth, Arteta definitely left him on too long. Like, he should have taken him off a lot longer than he does, and there has been a trend of Arteta not reacting to Saka being injured. But that being said, we're not in the Europa League anymore. We can't rotate squads. We're in a group that isn't the most difficult, but it's tricky.
Yeah, exactly.
And Arteta needs to put out a full-strength team. So he did, and unfortunately, Saka is injured now. Arteta has said that Saka's a major doubt for the weekend. But, Adam, I can't trust my own manager. He keeps lying about injuries. Do you think he's lying again?
I don't know. Obviously, there was that little bit of a feeling that Saka had on, I think, the previous match, right, against Bournemouth. And I would say that maybe he's caused it to aggravate potentially further. And I don't know the extent. It's typical fashion of these modern managers now, Rory, where they don't really disclose that information because they don't want the opposition to know how, like, whether they're going to face Saka or not. So that's the reason why Arteta's being shrewd, shall we say. But one of the things I would say is, if they would have done their research on Lens, they would have known down that right-hand side, they've got a Polish winger that has been the best in Ligue 1 last season. He was awarded the best midfielder in Ligue 1, and he completely tore Zinchenko so many times down that left-hand side. Obviously, it doesn't help that he didn't get much of a kind of backup from Kai Havertz on that left-hand side.
Well, I think...
Or any of them, in fairness. But I think every time there's 1-2 kind of combinations Lens were doing, Frankowski was just down that side, whipping in crosses. You saw it in the first half as well, so the warning signs were already there. Arteta could have doubled up on that side, or maybe just changed the formation a bit just to shore it up, making it less easy. And it was that contribution of Frankowski, especially for the second goal for Lens. He gets that ball in, and it was superbly taken. I have to look at the name. It's Wal, isn't it?
Wahi.
Eli Wahi scores a fantastic kind of half volley against Raya. Maybe a little bit more pressure from defenders needed there, but again, it was a well taken cross by Frankowski and first time taken by Wahi for that goal. Arsenal disappointing day in the office, it has to be said, but that was quite an intense atmosphere as well. I have to give it to the Lens fans. They made it more of a game, really.
This was always the away trip I was most nervous about. And that's why on Monday, saying it in pod, I said, I'm not looking forward to this game. I'm not excited about this game because I feel like I'm not excited about it. And I think the atmosphere was fantastic. They are a very, very good team. They finished 1 point behind PSG.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they've had a tricky start to this season, but having watched some of their highlights and watched a bit of them before the game kicked off, I think they've been unlucky in a lot of those games. And I think what this was here was it kind of gave me vibes of when we lost to Brentford in their first Premier League game.
Right, yeah.
Because this is their first home game back in the Champions League for 30 years. I thought we're on a hide into nothing here. They're just going to be so up for it. And I think they were fantastic.
They were.
I think they, without a doubt, deserved to win the game. I think, but that being said, we, as is always the case, we conceded the goals ourselves. It was down to our mistakes that they came through. The first goal, I think it is Raya just kicks it straight to their, it's intercepted into midfield.
Yeah.
We're missing the runners, and then they're straight through. And it's just, again, not getting bodies quick enough back, getting caught in transition. And the second goal felt very similar. We lose the ball in midfield, it's bang, 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 gone, and we've conceded. And sorry, so I feel like we very much did the damage to ourselves, but like Villa against Brighton, they were just punishing every mistake. And I think we had chances to score as well. Tomiyasu was really unlucky not to score. There was a chance at the end with Reece Nelson and the goalkeeper where it was kind of up in the air. Someone should have really got something there. So I think we definitely had chances to get something, but ultimately we didn't deserve it. I think Kai Havertz has again been a lightning rod for everybody, and I'm kind of sick of it happening because I think actually he played pretty well in this game. I think defensively he did what he was supposed to do. The sooner people realise that he's not a striker anymore, stop judging him by goals and assists. It's like judging Declan Rice by goals and assists.
It's stupid.
I know he's meant to be chipping in with goals. He's a number 8, but let's not say we're expecting him to score every game. That's not the role he plays anymore. I think off the ball, he's fantastic. And I think he was far from the worst player on the pitch this game. I think Leandro Trossard was awful. That's why he got taken off. And I think Zinchenko, again, defensively, there's always a bit of a mistake in him. We know that defensively, watch Anfield away last year, he has the odd lapse. So I think I think you're right. With that Frankowski on the wing, we could have done more to help him there a little bit.
Yeah, massively.
But incredible win for Lens. And Arsenal, look, we will still be fine. I'm not panicking.
Yeah, I think you will beat them on a return leg.
Yeah, I think it's just a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call, and it's, okay, welcome to the big leagues. because the Europa League group stage we usually got through fairly comfortably,
Probably
and
easier.
then we shit the bed. Now we're just shitting the bed a bit earlier, and it's a bit of a wake up call. But in the other game, in a massive stroke of luck with my Arsenal hat on, it finished a draw. So that leaves the table. Lens on 4 points, Arsenal on 3, Sevilla on 2, and PSV on 1 in a nice little bit of, counting. And yeah, I was so relieved when that last minute equaliser went in. I was like, okay, good. Right, that's fine. Even that 1 point difference just makes it a bit easier. But yeah, an interesting game there. Like Sevilla, again, I never know how good Sevilla are.
I don't think
but
they're
then they
very
always
good.
manage to pull it out the fire, right?
I don't think they're very good, Rory, unfortunately. But they have this kind of tendency to pull it out of the bag for the European occasion. It feels like they're just up for it. They don't care about it as much. They don't care about their league position as much. But I was expecting them to shithouse their way to a 2-1 win in the end, because I thought with Sergio Ramos at the back, I would have thought, that experience would have told. But in fairness, PSV, great kind of equaliser, because he kind of peels off to the back post and heads it in. So, yeah, I think that was a fantastic goal by PSV. PSV, you could see, were visibly shaken when it went to 2-1. The fans were like, oh my fucking God, like, how have we done this from kickoff, basically? But yeah, no, fair play. They brought themselves back into the game. And like you say, Rory, it gives you a glimmer of hope now, because they cancelled each other out, and it makes the group a bit more open, definitely. So, yeah, you can breathe, Rory.
I'm relieved. And now we've got Sevilla coming up twice. So what could possibly go wrong? They knocked us out of the Europa League, I want to say, maybe twice. They've definitely knocked us out once. So yeah, a little bit nervous about that one. But we're going to leave Group B behind, and we're going to move on to Group C, where Ancelotti returned to his old team in Naples, and it was an absolute barnstormer. 2 ex-Stoke City colleagues lining up against each other in Ostergaard and Hosselu. That's where everyone was looking, really. That's where all the headlines were. And what a game this was.
Wow.
Napoli really properly fighting now. They look so much better.
They look incredible. Zielinski again was incredible for this match. But like you say, Rory, there seems like there is that kind of confidence, the air of like they're going to do something with the ball every time. There was something about them. Like Osimhen was unlucky when it went down to 3-2. He could have scored an equaliser.
He had that header. He could have done a little bit better there, I think.
He did it. He did aim it a bit too easy for Kepa, right? But you have to give it to Real Madrid as well. And that man, Jude Bellingham, I mean, there's going to be some superlatives. We'll talk about Valverde and that hit. That was incredible. I
just want to talk about Bellingham.
Bellingham was just... Is
he the most complete footballer that England have ever produced?
I would say he's coming close to being that kind of unique spark of a player. Like the last time I can remember of someone that was like similar, and I might be looking very old here, but Gascoigne was that kind of spark. He was different in different ways, right?
Yeah, he had more flair, Gascoigne, didn't he? He was a bit more showy-offy. You can
see that with a bit of Bellingham now. You can see that's kind of rubbing off on him, because he feels like he's the inspiration. He creates chances now. You saw what he did for Vinicius Junior's opener, right? It was just that kind of quick ball. That was it. Yeah. And even that kind of intuitive, like, I'll stick my leg here because Di Lorenzo passes it out, right? And then I'm just lost for words. Like, this feels like we knew how good he was at Dortmund, but it's just up a level now. And it's incredible.
Real Madrid fans and the papers are comparing him to Alfredo Di Stefano.
I mean,
now, if you're not aware of what that man means to Real Madrid, imagine being the biggest icon at the biggest club in the world, right? Now they're comparing him to him already, because they're like, this guy is the truth. This guy is everything. And I think I was watching that Stick to Football with Gary Neville, I think it was, which has actually been pretty decent. I think it was there they were talking about him, and they were comparing him to Brian Robson. And I think it's a massive shout in terms of that, because he was a player who's now massively underrated. Like, people our generation, I think, as well, don't realise how good that guy was. My dad always tells me about how good Brian Robson was and how complete he was. And when I've watched him and seen like his highlight reel or whatever, he was able to do everything. He was captain fantastic. It was like attacking, defending, flair, whatever. He had it all. And I feel like Bellingham really is the closest England have had to him since him, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think it's very, I don't see, or I haven't seen a player like this play for England. And for him to just walk into Real Madrid, I know I've said it before, but for him to just walk into Real Madrid and instantly become the main character, do you know how rare that is?
That's the point. They were questioning him when he took the number 5 shirt. They were like,
Yeah.
you're getting Zidane's shirt. Like, that's a statement. That's a huge statement for a player to like kind of go, I want this shirt. And just I think it's enduring that how he's adapted so well to the Spanish culture. He's learning language, like you said on Monday's show. The fact that he's kind of commentating and saying, you know, I really like your work. You know, when he was talking about the Spanish journalist down there, I've forgotten his name, but Sid Lowe. I just love everything about him. And I don't know what happened this week, but there was a picture of Bellingham when he was younger, and it was with a certain Musiala in an England kit. So they're playing in the under, imagine it's under 15s or 16s.
I know you
Rory.
can't be greedy. I know you can't be greedy, but imagine having both of them.
Right now, this is the thing. You know, Gareth Southgate would still break it up. He'd still put Jordan Henderson.
He'd still have Calvin Phillips in there. No, that's very true. That's very true. But God damn it, Jude Bellingham. God damn it. I cannot describe to you how much I love that man. And I am so invested in his career. And it's incredible. It's incredible to see. But Napoli, that is a massively respectable result, a respectable performance. But yeah, let's go for, it's gone down as a Meret own goal, which I think is very, very harsh on Valverde.
That's very harsh because the way Valverde hits that, I mean, what is Meret supposed to do?
I can't.
He dives, he tries his best. I mean, that hit was incredible. I've liked Valverde from last season. I mean, he was just, and I was a bit disappointed when I saw him against, obviously, Man City in that kind of semi-final game. But boy, that was incredible. That was absolutely incredible hit. Just quick word on Napoli. Do you feel they were a bit sloppy on the night, though?
I feel like they still have, like, their defence is not what it was last year, and they're still missing defenders. Like, Rahmani's still injured, right? Like, Juan Jesus, that's fine. You're not going to miss him.
You know what you're getting with him, right?
Rahmani being injured, I think, is a big miss. And I think Ostergaard, like, we've seen him in a few Serie A games, has been far from steady. But it does feel like, I feel like he is a player that, given more game time, we will see him improve, and he will kind of, I think there is I remember him stepping in a few games last season, and he didn't look out of place. So I think, like, he just needs a few more minutes under his belt. I think there is a player there, but yeah, defensively they're not what they were last year.
And I think Mario Rui's legs have had it now, to be fair. I mean,
I think Spalletti got the one last season out of him. I think he got that last season out of him.
Massively.
Di Lorenzo is still one of the best wing-backs in the world, and I'm waiting for someone to try and pry him away from Napoli. I don't think he will, but
no, I think
I would take him at Arsenal in a heartbeat. Jesus Christ, he's unbelievable. But elsewhere in that group, I just need to get it up. What was it? Braga against Union Berlin. Now, I put this on in the vague of just, I'll just pick a game, flip a coin, I'll put this one on.
Yeah.
Bloody hell. I was like really surprised by this. It was absolutely brilliant. Now, Union Berlin, they go 2-0 up. I thought, okay, finally, the atmosphere in that stadium was insane. I realised that's the first game at that stadium I've watched since the World Cup final in 2006, I think. And all I could see was like, oh yeah, that's that ground, right? And it was really weird. But the atmosphere was amazing. Union Berlin were massively up for it. And the striker, Geraldo Becker, he looked good against Real Madrid. And he looked lively against Real Madrid. And I was really impressed by him. He gets 2 goals, 2 very well taken goals.
Yeah.
But then Union Berlin, I don't know how you feel about it. They just seem super naive, like really naive.
Yes, yeah. I think this was always going to be an adventure for Union Berlin because I think you still have to pinch some of their supporters. They can't believe they're there. Like there was, I seem to remember reading an article. They said they can't believe Leonardo Bonucci is in their defense. Like they see him as this, like, you know, legend of the game. Like they can't believe he's turning up for Union Berlin. So yeah, it's definitely naivety, Rory. There is a lack of experience, but that said, they have got some good players. Like we know about Robert Gosens from his time at Inter and Atalanta. So it's not like they lack like the foresight, if that makes sense. However, yeah, those 2 games they've been unlucky, right? And that is just through maybe a bit more maturity. They'll kind of maybe after this campaign they'll crave it and they'll want to go back. So I'm hoping for their sake they're able to do another successful campaign in the Bundesliga, and we'll see them again. Because
They've not had a great start.
They look not great, but I think the Bundesliga is one of those funny leagues. It's down to like runs of form. Like Union Berlin, they were so fortunate, I think, to an extent of how badly some of the other teams were in that league.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
That includes Bayern, and this is the thing. It's still very much unpredictable. The only team that you can say that's doing really well in that league is Leverkusen under Xabi Alonso, and that's the team to look out for now, I think. But yeah, I look, they've got a really good manager, Urs Fischer, as well. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with this Union Berlin team, because they're not expected to be there. That's the thing. They're a club. They're a hipster club. They've done well to be in the Bundesliga in the first place, but for them to pull off these kind of shocks and be at the Champions League, incredible. I just hope they can get a win. Rory, that's all I would say.
I think they will. I think that they are learning lessons, maybe, even though conceding 2 goals in the last minute in 2 games is not apparent of learning lessons. But I do also have to say, the last 2 goals from Braga are both absolute stunners as well. Like, they're just long range, just pinpoint bangers. And I think there's not much the goalkeeper could have done about either of them. I think the defence and the midfield are closing them down. You could always close down quicker, but they were closing them down. It's just they were 2 beautiful hits, and it kind of felt like when it's not your day, it's not your day. But we also have to say Braga is like a super romantic story as well. Like, this is their first time in the Champions League, I think, and they've got their first Champions League win. And 2 beautiful goals from Bruma and Castro. And for them, this is a ride as well. And I've been really impressed with them. Even against Napoli, they made it very difficult for Napoli. It was just their defender spamming it into his own net that cost them the game, right? He almost did it in this game as well, but he's definitely learned his lesson and put it over the crossbar this time. And I was like, okay, good progress, right?
Do you think he was had those flashbacks going through?
Can you imagine how much you'd be shitting yourself? How much you'd be shitting yourself? Your stomach would be falling out your ass. Honestly, it'd be so horrible. But he did put it over the bar this time. But I thought it was a really good game where both teams were just going for it. There was like it was really no sign of like, let's just take a point. It was like, it made me think of those the game as a kid with the robots where they just punch each other, just zero defense, just absolutely going at it. So I absolutely loved that game. I was really surprised. I didn't expect it to be as good as it was. So really loved that. Nice. So in Group C, we have Real Madrid top with 6 points, Napoli second with 3, Braga third with 3, and Union Berlin bottom with 0. They'll get a win. They'll get a win somewhere. Nice. Next, Group D, and let's talk about Inter Real Sociedad. Now, Adam, we have talked about Inter's inability to be clinical in front of goal at times.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think this will bite them on the arse? Because there's a few games where they should have been miles ahead and they've squeaked past 1-0, and this is another one of them.
Yeah, I do feel that this was a game that they had to be patient, shall we say, because when you look at the XG stats in particular, that kind of tells you the story, because it was 3.81 versus Benfica's 0.31. So they won it by miles. They had plenty of opportunities here, Rory. One of the players that I put as my notes was Barella, because Barella looks incredible. Just the whipping of the ball, the control that he had over it. I mean, he looks so incredible for this match. But if we go back to that kind of finishing piece... He's
had a very slow start to the season, but he's starting to wake up.
He's starting to look the real deal now. In terms of that finishing piece, Lautaro was unlucky. There's a few opportunities. I mean, towards the end of the match, he's run past the goalkeeper and he's just his feeting. He's just losing his placement, and probably those 4 goals that Salernitana has taken out of him. He's scored too many already.
Spread them out, Lautaro. Spread them out.
But that said, I mean, what a goal by Thuram as well. Well taken, and he's proving such a formidable partnership now. not only a target man, Rory, he's able to contribute with these goals. And he wasn't that prolific, right? If you compare him at Mönchengladbach, he was a good goal scorer. He wasn't prolific in that sense. But he seems like he's grown. He's grown. He loves, you can see it even in that celebration. He was looking at the fans and he was adoring that moment. He was loving it. And you know he's come to his own. He knows what it means to be in Serie A and being at a club like Inter now.
I think it's another player similar to Bellingham that's just stepped up to the level. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the Mönchengladbach, like they're a huge club, but I think you have to look at the romance of, for any football fan, you know San Siro, you know the curva, you know it's a ground you want to visit, it's a ground you want to play at, whatever. And I think he's stepped up to that level. And I think he is on course, and it's not this is the coldest of takes because I think it's pretty obvious, but he is on course to be the signing of the summer by some distance.
Massively. But
like, on a free, and you take him from your cross-city rivals when he's like, looks like he's bound to go there. Yeah. And then he comes and slots in straight away. And you're right, his finishing, his playmaking, like, he's just such a productive player. And yeah, you're right, he just absolutely loves it. I think Benfica, they kind of, because of they got knocked out in the knockout stages last year, I think that was kind of still in their heads and they didn't really know how to play the game. I feel like last year they kind of went for it a bit more. And here it just felt like rabbit in headlights and they panicked. And like, oh, well, they did us last year, let's not get done this year. So I feel like they kind of panicked. I was really disappointed in their performance, but that is also down to the fact that Inter was so dominant. Also, to say, like, Dumfries is such a confusing player.
I know. He just looks incredible now, suddenly.
But then he, like, spams 3 headers over the bar, and you're like, oh, mate, would you just, like... He always looks like he's about to do something brilliant, and then 3 times out of 10 he'll actually do that brilliant thing, but the other 7 times he just, like, completely panics. You know, your computer just goes blank and, like, crashes. And I just think he's such a confusing player, but he's a lot of fun to watch. He's a lot of fun to watch.
He's quite funny.
And yeah, last word on Barella, like, that assist is a beautiful assist. And he really looks like he's starting to come into his own a little bit. And yeah, we know how good he is. We all know how good he is. He's just had a bit of a slow start to the season.
He's just not good enough for the Premier League, according to Nigel Spackman. So don't worry. Let Serie A enjoy him even more.
Yeah, fine,
that's all I can say.
Fine. Fine. I'm taking it personally, by the way, I know. Nigel. Like,
TNT, what are you thinking about employing this guy?
Walking around with a name like Nigel. Sod off. Right. We're going to move. So, in that group, Inter are currently level on points with a team I'm falling in love with, Real Sociedad. Now, Takefusa Kubo, another incredibly exciting Japanese player who's been tearing it up in La Liga. And Oyarzábal as well, a player who's really catching some headlines. But I just want to quickly say, did you see the Kubo's celebration from the weekend where he did the twerk?
No.
It was fucking brilliant. I can't remember the female player who did it. I really wish I remember that. Victoria something. She pretended to pull a hamstring and then like twerked at the corner.
Yes,
like,
I know which one you're talking about now. Yes,
he did that.
I don't know the player, but that is quite.
But
funny.
that basically sums up the vibes at Sociedad at the minute. Like, they are just absolutely loving it, and I feel like they're a team that I'm going to call it early. They're going to be the surprise package in the Champions League this year.
Okay.
I think they're going to be the team that goes further than people expect. I honestly think this team on their day and at home can cause problems to any side. And it's just come to me, but I kind of have a sneaky feeling that Arsenal might end up there because of Arteta and we could be in trouble.
Yep. That would be interesting. That would be so fascinating. But anyway, Rory, let's move on.
Let's move on. And next we're going to be talking about after D comes E. And we're going to start in Glasgow. I can't get all the predictions right, guys. I said Celtic were going to get out of this group, and guess what? They're not. They are shooting themselves in the foot at every opportunity.
Yeah.
But Lazio in the final minute, again, 97th minute this time, was it? 96?
Yeah, 96, I think it was, yeah. It might have been recorded as 95th. Because it was technically on the cusp. It was on the cusp, yeah.
Yeah, 95th minute, Pedro gets the winner after Vecino, and Kyogo, I really liked that goal from Celtic. I thought it was a very well worked goal. I'm going to give them some credit.
Yeah, O'Reilly was incredible for this kind of 1-2 of Kyogo, and Kyogo takes it really well. I think what you have to give credit was Celtic's intense kind of pressure on the front foot, not letting Lazio settle down. It was very evident.
They were the better team, I think.
I feel definitely for the first half, and I felt like at that point I was wondering, will Lazio be able to cope with the pressure? Because they were kind of exploding at points. They couldn't get two passes together at one point. I know all the time having to bang it back to Providal, who was just hoofing it as far as he could every time.
Want it.
He had no choice, did he? He had no choice whatsoever. This off the back of like the comments in midweek by Sarri, who's like, he was I don't know if you saw it, Rory, but he was saying that he's lost with the time schedule. He doesn't know who he's facing the next game. It feels like Sarri's going to be out of the door soon.
It is end days, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But back to the performance, Lazio somehow kind of grow into it. They kind of have their little moments. Kamada has a few kind of opportunities from distance, which go into corner situations. I think Joe Hart is a bit suspect for at least one of the goals, I would say.
He's not that great. He's not that great.
He's good shot stopper, and that's about it. He's the opposite of Onana, isn't he, basically? Ever since Pirlo did that Panenka,
he's never been the same.
He's never been the same, has he? But yeah, Celtic, I think, again, I just feel like this is that bit that I spoke about in the preview, which is they needed to invest. They had some funds in there. Why have they not done this? And they did this historically before, where they kind of try and cheapskate themselves into these positions. And, buy Venegor of Hesselink for like 2.8 million and expect him to be like God's gift to get them out of the group stages.
Saying the contrary.
Exactly. So this is the problem. I feel this will always be the issue. And Brendan Rodgers as well, it seems to have this like little bit of a curse when it comes to Champions League. Can't seem to grind out results. Fantastic when it's the domestic league, because you can see the football that they play is a continuation to a degree of what Postecoglou did last season. But I think it's the players that were there. Let's park that to the side. That's another podcast. But the point is, when it comes to those big games, they seem to be up for it. The crowd's up for it, but they just falter for some reason. They just don't have that experience, and that's the difference, I think, Rory. If they're ever going to get out of the group stages, they're going to have to invest and get some bigger names into that team. And unfortunately, I think it's just attracting those bigger names to come and play against Aberdeen and Inverness, Caledonia Thistle.
Like, the league itself needs improving before any of the clubs get better, unfortunately. But I do think Celtic probably deserved something from this game, and it was quite harsh because he did the last minute. But again, it's just what they do, isn't it? It's what they do. Yeah. In the other game, Atletico Madrid had to fight bloody hard against Feyenoord to come from 2-0 down after an incredible start, an own goal from Hermoso in the 7th minute, and then Hanko in the 34th. But Atletico came back, won it 3-2, and Antoine Griezmann and Morata. I think his goal-scoring record is actually pretty good.
Morata's found a home, hasn't he? He's found his place at the moment, and it feels like he just feels at home with what he's doing down there as well, in particular, because Atletico have kind of diversified. Diego Simeone has changed his philosophy to an extent. I think it also helps with the type of players that he's brought in the summer as well. So Azpilicueta, probably you could say he's into his retirement age now, but he kind of seems to get the best out of these kind of players, and he kind of fits that philosophy of a Diego Simeone player who will just give his all, right? And that's
he's
what
a fighter,
he loves.
Isn't he?
That's
he's
the
a
thing.
Fighter, absolute
That's
fighter.
what I mean. So Simeone knows how to pick his players. I mean, probably João Felix was something from the scouting division, and it never really fit for like Simeone or Atletico, right? But I mean, you've got to give credit to. I think they're dark horses. I really genuinely think they'll be dark horses for this competition as well. They're proving.
It'd be good to see Atletico back getting far in the competition.
I think so.
It feels like it's been a while.
I think they'll be interesting this season.
Nice. We're going to leave Group E there. Atletico top on 4 points on goals scored. Lazio on 4 points in second. Feyenoord on third with 3 points, and Celtic bottom with 0 points. God damn it, Celtic. We're going to move on to Group F, where one of my predictions, one of my predictions, and one that even as I said it, I thought, I don't know how much I believe this, came true, as Newcastle on their day were much better than PSG. Now, I'm just going to get out here early and say I'm going to ignore all the noise around it, which made me absolutely depressed and hate football, and just talk about the performance. Let's just talk about the performance. I don't have time for an existential crisis. So, Newcastle were bloody incredible. Oh my God.
Yep, they did their homework. They really did do their homework. And it was so bizarre seeing Enrique kind of announce the squad prior to kickoff around having almost 4 forwards. It reminded me of that 4-2-4 formation on that Football Manager where you're like, yeah, let's do it. It doesn't matter. We've got no.
I need a goal in the last 10 minutes. That's what it is.
Literally, just put all the chips into my front line, right? Basically,
wing backs attacking, like everything just going. Yeah.
But it was so bizarre because they clearly didn't have a understanding of how they were going to play that formation, how they're going to interact. The interesting thing was obviously Moussa Dembele. If his kind of shot from that free kick goes in, then you're talking potentially different dynamics of the game. But to their credit, Newcastle will start really well. They get the goal through Mickey Almiron. And that, again, is very similar to that Celtic philosophy. They put a lot of pressure on PSG's defenders. They were trying to pass it out the back. They struggled with that intensity that was supplied by Newcastle. Obviously, roared on by that St. James's Park crowd as well. But they seemed so fired up. They knew what they had to do. And, you had players like Anthony Gordon, who I never thought would be saying this, but he actually was quite good in terms of what he offered offensively.
Yeah, he played really well.
He played really well. Isak looks a huge threat on the night, and you could tell they kind of respected him. But it was just through like shots and rebounds. I think, if anything, I would say Newcastle were very lucky with the second goal, which Dan Burn scores.
I was about to say that.
I think they were very lucky to get away with that. For some reason, the VAR doesn't really pull it for the foul that happens prior to kind of the offside call, which obviously is onside because it's played on by one of the right backs. I think it's Hakimi. But yeah, unfortunately, from that moment onwards, they kind of collapsed. PSG were a shadow of their normal selves. Lots of questions going back to Paris. Enrique was even asked about why he chose that formation, and he said basically, look, I choose that and we'll talk about it in private. And it was just, lack of respect. I feel Enrique won't last at this current rate because they're doing really poorly in Ligue 1. Doesn't look like he's found a winning formula down there. It's going to be interesting, that second leg. That's all I'm going to say, because I think, there's going to be a lot of intense pressure on Enrique to pull off a result. And that group's really open, Rory. We'll talk about the other game in a minute, but yeah, it looks intense. What's your thoughts on this match, by the way?
I thought, Newcastle United are very good at coming up with plans. They're just very good at coming up with game plans, and they execute it very well. It's a system that they've been, they're more than familiar with. And I feel like with that, the crowd behind them, the occasion, it was all kind of felt like it was building up something. And what I find more interesting is the fact that PSG are finally, it seems, they've got rid of 2 superstars. They've tried to be pragmatic and be right, we need these players that aren't the big names, but they get the job done. And bringing in a player like Ugarte, who was incredible for Sporting Lisbon, and when I saw him, I was like, God damn it, I need him at Arsenal. Bringing in these players where you're like, oh, okay, they're filling in gaps and they're starting to build something. But it very much felt like a project team. It felt like it was just so many, still holes in it, still in transition, still not any clear identity. And it's just what is the point of PSG if they're not winning the Champions League? Because the whole thing is built towards that. They've got close to it once. They got to the final, right? It doesn't, they still feel nowhere near it. And I think just there's so, and then the tactical naivety from Luis Enrique, because that midfield, the midfield 2 of Ugarte and Zaire Emery, both very good players, but Emery is not defensively solid enough to keep up with the constant barrage of runners from the Newcastle attack in the style of football that they play, that Enrique should have known that they were going to play.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just feel like he didn't equip the team well enough to be able to deal with it. And then you can deal with the individual errors from the defence and the fact that Newcastle were able to jump on them and execute so effectively. It was an incredible performance. It's an amazing night for Newcastle fans. I honestly don't begrudge Newcastle fans any of it, because it's not your fault what's happened to your club, right? It's not your fault who owns them. If I was a Newcastle fan, would be enjoying that night, right? And I think it's a great thing to see. Just a lot of the noise around it, just afterwards, I felt hollow. I was just like, what is football? But we're going to leave it there.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to go on about it. And our mentions were an absolute mess last night. But you could go and check out them interactions on Twitter if you're really bored. But in the other game, there's literally nothing to say about it. Milan 0, Dortmund 0. Two teams doing absolutely... It did finish 0-0, right?
It did finish 0-0. And all I was going to say on this game, Rory, was that question marks for Pioli again, because whilst Dortmund, I think they were unlucky. I feel they had chances in this match towards the end of it. I appreciate it wasn't much of a kind of game I would switch on to watch again if that was the opportunity, let's put it that way. But I do worry whether Milan have enough kind of mental, what's the right word for this? Resilience, but also, patience to kind of grind out results at the moment. It doesn't feel like they can do that at the moment. They're still finding each other.
Not consistently.
That makes sense. Look, in the early days of Serie A, they seem like, oh wow, these new players have gelled really well, but actually they're not. It feels like they're still finding each other and they don't know best ways of working. I think it goes down to Pioli here as well. So maybe a point isn't that bad, but I think you should be trying to win these games. That Dortmund aren't a special side.
But I do still think Dortmund away is a tricky tie, and for Milan that's a better result than Dortmund. But they're now looking at 2-0 in the Champions. No, wait.
They drew against Newcastle.
So not a great start. But I did see today Cassano, who is always great entertainment, absolutely spouting off about Leao, and Leao retweeted it with just laughing emojis and clown faces. Yeah, Cassano is just fucking brilliant. I love him, but I understand why people absolutely hate him. Just saying that he's not productive enough and spouting.
He's trying to make up the other players.
I love you, Antonio. Sorry, but in the other two games, we're going to kind of I don't know.
I think we just summarise them.
Group G and H are just the most boring group.
Lewandowski's injured. There you go. That's your summary.
But funnily enough, the two games in both of these groups that were worth watching were from the teams that you wouldn't really watch. Young Boys Crvena Zvezda was 3-2, right? Just need to double check.
Yes, it was.
2-2 in the end.
2-2 in the end.
2-2, and Shakhtar Donetsk Antwerp was 3-2 with Shakhtar with Toby Alderweireld. Can I just give
a penalty?
a quick applause to Tony Alderweireld missing the last-minute penalty to ensure that Antwerp.
I thought Icardi's was bad enough, but Toby's wins
Christ.
it.
It was a bad penalty. It was a bad penalty. Why are centre-backs taking your frigging penalties? Anyway, that finished 3-2, right? Yeah, 3-2
to Shakhtar won 3-2 away. Yeah.
Shakhtar, I always enjoy watching. But that means that we have finished the Champions League group stages. Just a few headlines in the Europa League. West Ham won today, which now means that they are on the longest unbeaten run in European football.
Wow.
For an English team in history, which is incredible. And friend of the show, Tom Wayne, who told me that fact, did also say that feels a very long way away from losing to Astra fucking Gugu, which is I really enjoy. So yeah, West Ham absolutely loving it. The other results, Brighton came from 2-0 down to draw with Marseille, which is massive.
A Gattuso's Marseille side now as well.
Oh, it is Gattuso. He's put on a lot of timber as well.
Yes, I said he likes Nonna's cooking a bit too much. I mean, he's put it on.
It's like impressive.
It reminds me of when when we saw Wesley Schneider suddenly like a balloon. That's what
all of a sudden he looks like a truck driver, and you're like, oh crap, someone's been enjoying your time off. How did the other English teams get on? Liverpool beat Union Saint-Gilloise San Gilloise 2-0. Nothing really surprising there. Gravenberch getting his first goal for Liverpool. That's exciting. And I'm going to very quickly go. Aberdeen drew 1-1 with HJK. Aston Villa only won 1-0. And that John McGinn in the 94th minute against Rinsky. They still need to figure out European football, don't they, Villa? They're struggling a little bit, but they get a win. And that is all the English teams. Have I forgotten about anybody? I know Atalanta aren't English. Aberdeen aren't English.
There is the British team Rangers obviously lost as well 2-1, didn't they? Away.
That is quite funny.
So yeah.
Sorry, Craig, but that is quite funny. So we're going to leave European football there. We're going to go for a very quick break, and we're going to come back with our weekend previews. We will see you there.
Hi, my name is Dimi Konstantopoulos, and you're listening to the Anglo-Italian podcast.
And here we are. It's time for the weekend preview. So, Adam, do you want to take us through the Serie A games this weekend? There's some big ones.
Sure, yeah, there's some very big games for our listeners to look forward to. If we start with tomorrow's game, so you'll be listening to this, listener, on a Friday, hopefully. So we'll start off with Empoli taking on the might of Udinese. So that's got draw written all over it to make it 5 consecutive draws for Udinese, probably. But Empoli, obviously, in better form. Having said that, they lost the last game, so not holding out too much hope here. But the big game that does take place this evening, if you're listening to us on the Friday, is Lecce versus Sassuolo. So we joked about it offline, Rory. Who's going to fuck up first? Who's going to make it even worse for each other?
Screw it up?
I'm hoping personally that Lecce do get a win, because it'd be nice for them to kind of be in that kind of top 6 still mix to be considered. I know it won't last long.
I think it's Sassuolo fashion. They have to lose to Lecce. They can't beat Lecce away.
The Robin Hood. They give to the poor, right? So it's only just that they do that on this occasion. Anyway, Rory, we move on to Saturday. A very juicy game at 2:00, and that is Inter taking on Bologna. They're at home. Bologna in better form of late, but it could be a tricky tie for Inter. I mean, I know we talked about how they've kind of gone through this little bit of a dry kind of spell in front of goal in the Champions League. However, I still expect them to win. Should be a good game, though, on show. And then we move in at 5:00 to the Turin derby, and we've got Juventus taking on Torino. Rory, do we expect Torino to actually win this game for once?
No, they'll never win it. No. They'll never win it. They'll never win it. It'll be a 1-0 win to Juve in the 87th minute.
Scored by Rabiot.
I'm going to say, no, Bremer's injured, isn't it? I'm going to say Kostic in the 87th minute, 1-0, and it'll be the worst game in history. Yeah.
I'm going to go, it will be scored in the 21st minute, and then they'll defend for the rest of the game, and no one will enjoy the game. So basically the same philosophy there going on anyway. And then in the late kickoff on Saturday, we will have Genoa taking on Milan. So Gilardino used to be a striker, now comes back as a coach. Genoa, very exciting. Obviously, he doesn't want any mentions of Gudmundsson, so we'll just talk about Retegui instead, potentially doing something against Milan. Very good game there, Rory. And we move in quickly to Sunday. So we've got Monza take on Salernitana, Frosinone taking Hellas Verona. A big game for Sarri's career, potentially. Lazio take on Atalanta. That should be goal fest, potentially.
Scamacca is back this weekend, people. Don't worry for my Fantacalcio. He is available to be picked again.
Claudio Ranieri faces his old side, Roma, on the 5 p.m. kickoff. He does need a win, Rory. He does need a big win somehow. Could be on the cards here. This is Mourinho's Roma, so potentially there. And the last game on Sunday night, which again is quite a good tie, I would say. Potential for football here. Napoli taking on Fiorentina. Fiorentina of late starting to win games now, Rory, but I just don't have much hope for them when it comes to Serie A.
They finally had a striker score, and Zola actually scored his first goal. He's their first striker to score this season as well. So maybe it is a turnaround for them. We will see. In the Premier League, we have on Saturday the early kickoff down at Kenilworth Road. They will be visited by Tottenham. Also, I completely missed me by that Luton played Burnley this midweek. If you didn't see it, Luton lost 2-1 to Burnley. Of course they frigging did.
Yes, they did.
But Luton will take on Tottenham. I can only really see that going one way, but it'll be nice to see Kenilworth Road on an early kickoff.
Yep.
We have Fulham taking on Sheffield United. Heckingbotham's still in charge, right? Still in charge?
Yes, he's still in charge.
Somehow. Still in charge. Fulham, after the humiliation of losing to Chelsea, need to save some face and get back on the winning ride. Then we have Burnley, fresh off their first win from the season, taking on Chelsea in the second of the 3 o'clock kickoffs on the Saturday. We have Man United hosting Brentford, as we mentioned earlier. Brentford having a pretty low-key, to be polite, start to the season. Man United desperately need a win. I can see this as a draw, I'll be honest.
Score draw,
I think neither team. I think neither team's really going to take this one. Then the first massive game of a Saturday, I think Everton taking on Bournemouth. Bournemouth are yet to win a game. They are visiting Goodison Park. This will only end one way. Adam, how does this end?
I'm going to say 3-1 Bournemouth. I can see that happening. I can see Solanke potentially scoring a hat-trick. Although I want to say, I think that's happened before. I want to say that's happened before. I'm just going to quickly check if they're face-to-faces. I'm pretty sure there was a very similar scoreline
that does sound familiar.
Gary O'Neill pulled off a
result.
result.
I also heard a statistic about Everton this week that made me laugh and cry. I'm sorry, Everton fans, because you don't really need this right now. But since 1995, Everton are the only side in professional English football to have not had a trophy or promotion to celebrate, which is a frigging brutal stat. I thought supporting Sunderland was bad, but Everton might be worse.
Yes, that is pretty brutal. And I was right, Rory. Well, they did. So there's been various different results. But back in 2020, Everton lost 3-1 to Bournemouth. In November 2022, Bournemouth won 4-1. November 2022 again, Bournemouth won 3-0.
Last record is terrible.
Last time Everton beat Bournemouth was in May when they were scrapping for survival. That was that last day, wasn't it? They won 1-0.
It was the Decore goal.
Yeah. So
Jesus. Grim times. I love the little silence there in mourning, like. Oh, God. Then we have, in the late kickoff, it's not Newcastle United, people. It is not Newcastle United in the late kickoff. Crystal Palace will be hosting Nottingham Forest. I think that could be an interesting one, actually. Then on Sunday, we have, spicy, Brighton taking on Liverpool. Brighton fresh off a battering. Liverpool fresh off an injustice. Two managers will be desperate for a win here. This game always has goals. It's always like 4-3, 3-3, 3-2. It's never a dull one, this.
Yeah, I can fancy this being, I'm going to put it out there, 5-5-5.
Oh, that's bold. It's bold. I love it.
Zerbi to stoke it up.
I absolutely love it. Then we have West Ham taking on Newcastle at the same time. Interesting one. West Ham, Jared Bowen called up into the England squad.
Yeah.
West Ham having a very good start to the season. Newcastle dealing with Europe for the first time. And that is a tricky stadium to go to.
Yep.
Then we have, at the same time again, a West Midlands derby, I want to say. Midlands. As Wolves take on Aston Villa. I think that is going to be a really interesting one because Wolves, again, we've said, they're much better than their position shows, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
And Villa, obviously fantastic this year. And then it now feels also real. It now feels also real that it's going to happen this Sunday. Arsenal taking on Manchester City. If we don't beat them this weekend, we're never going to beat them. I think that's it, really. They're without Rodri. They're without De Bruyne. They're not in the greatest form. Like, if we don't win this weekend, we will never beat. It just feels, and I know Arsenal fans are so dramatic and just so, final and everything, but it really does feel like this is the chance.
The only one glimmer of hope for Man City fans is the form of Julian Alvarez. I mean, that guy that we didn't speak about his goal against Red Bull Leipzig, but yeah, I mean, you mentioned. I'm
telling you, one of the best strikers in the league. I
think there is a definite candidate there. I think the way he's playing, he's been incredible. So, yeah, they better do a good man-marking job of him. That's all I can say.
As much as I hate him, there's a slight positive is that Thomas Partey might be back. And as much as I hate him off the field and as a person, etc., it could be a positive. And I hate myself that I'm having to say that. But he could be back. And yes, the video of him being celebrated in training did make me sick. But we are going to leave the Premier League there for now. And we're going to come back with a very quick-ish mastermind quiz after we've set the tension. And here we are. Time for Mastermind. And this time it is Adam's turn to take on the gauntlet, to run the gauntlet, as he has
Without
1 minute.
any knocking neighbours this time, right?
Yeah, I know. Actually, I saw them walking out, and it was 4 girls who clearly looked like they were going out to get hammered. So I was like, okay, good. Have fun. You can't complain while I'm shouting next door. Good. So this week we have, this pod is just turning into Who Lives Next Door to Rory for this week, I've realised. This week you have 2 categories to choose between, Adam. You have debut teams in Europe in the 23-24 season, or Serie A stadiums in the 23-24 season.
Them are my specialist subject. Let's put it that way. Let us go with stadiums. Let's go with that one.
Okay, so this is just going to be name the stadium. What is the name of the Serie A stadium? I'm just going to give you the team. You tell me the name of the stadium. That's it.
Okay.
Right. And 1 minute, starting. Oh, that's nearly 59. 1 minute, starting now. Fiorentina.
Pass.
Let's go Inter Milan.
San Siro.
Torino.
Stadio Olimpico.
Very good. Udinese.
The name is now. Pass.
Lecce.
Del Mare.
Oh,
Stadio del
nice.
Mare.
Good. Hellas Verona.
Pass.
Empoli.
Pass.
Sassuolo.
The Marpe Stadium.
Nice. Good. Salernitana.
No, pass.
Bologna.
Pass.
Atalanta.
I'm going to pass.
And you have run out of time. As the chicken crows in traditional Mastermind style, you have ran out of time. But you got 4. I was counting them on my hand. You got 4.
Good.
That is
more than I've ever bloody got
good.
in any of the rounds beforehand.
That's not bad. That's not bad, right?
I've improved.
I can't remember which ones I asked, so I'm just going to go through a few.
So
Atalanta
Fiorentina was one of them, yeah.
So Atalanta is the Stadio Atleti Azzurri d'Italia. It's kind of difficult.
Yeah.
Bologna, the Stadio Renato Dallara. Didn't do Cagliari. Empoli, Stadio Carlo Castellani. The difficult thing is in Italy, they're all named after people. Fiorentina, Stadio Artemio Franchi. I asked Hellas Verona, Stadio Bentegodi. Torino, you got right.
Yeah.
Lecce, you got right with Via del Mare. It's a great name for a stadium as well.
It is.
And Salernitana, Stadio Arecchi. Mappe Stadium, you got right. And Udinese is Stadio Friuli, which is the region that Udine is in. That's pretty good, Adam. That's not bad. When I set this category, I was like, I don't know how many of these I get, to be honest. Because whenever Tommy asks me, I always just say Artemio Franchi for any stadium because it's just the one that's in my head. I'm like, oh, Bologna, that's Artemio Franchi. They're like, no. Oh, Cagliari, that's Artemio Franchi. No, it's not. Yeah, always. It's very, very difficult.
It's true. It's either Olimpico, isn't it, as well? Olimpico stadiums as well, right? Because I
also didn't want to just go Roma, if you know what I mean, and then Inter,
Lazio,
Milan,
yeah. Come on.
Just let you rock up the points. I feel like there's got to be some self-preservation in the game as well.
Exactly, you've got to do the smaller grounds, right? You've got to do the Frustadores of the world.
Well, guys, thank you for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have. It's always great to be back talking football and talking Champions League, etc. We've got a great weekend ahead of us. Hopefully on Monday, I'm coming back absolutely over the moon, but I am not holding my breath. Adam, anything to say before we let these lovely people go?
No, great pod as ever. And just think about Czeslaw Michniewicz this weekend. I'm sure he's really depressed. That's all.
In his big bath of money. Big bath of money. Yeah. And we are going to leave you with a quote. Now, I've been sat on this quote for a while, but I feel like now is the time to finally drop it. And it does come from Erik Ten Hag. And it is, of course, I think this will be engraved in like the Etihad Stadium at some point, but I admire them both. Man City and Liverpool, they play fantastic football. But eras come to an end. Arrivederci. We will see you on Monday.
Ciao, ciao.